So I know I cover Lauren Chen a lot on this channel, but that's because she has a lot to say, she uploads regularly, and I disagree with basically everything that comes out of her mouth. But she recently uploaded a video to YouTube that took the internet by storm, and there was a clip from it that I saw on Twitter, and I figured I had to respond to this video because of the mask off comments that she makes when she's talking about multiculturalism and the Nordic countries. But she uploaded the Gravel Institute socialist propaganda to her YouTube channel, and I kind of wanted to give my opinion on it. Take a look. I haven't seen it yet other than that clip that went viral on Twitter. What all she has to say about this. So we're going to watch this at 1.5 speed. It's a 17-minute video. Hopefully the segment won't be too long.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about the Gravel Institute, an organization that describes itself as, quote, fighting PragerU from the left on its own turf, with short videos spreading progressive ideas. A lot of you have...
Okay, I just want to say I'm super excited about the Gravel Institute. It is the left's answer to the far-right PragerU channel, where it's short-form content that's easily digestible, that you can send to your relative to try and convince them and bring them over at least farther left than they currently are. I'm very excited about this YouTube video. The first 2 videos that they've released have been very, very good. There are other videos on their channel that have a different format that were released prior, but the latest 2 that they've released are very, very good, and I encourage all of you to go subscribe to the Gravel Institute, subscribe to my channel, drop a like, but go to the Gravel Institute's YouTube channel and subscribe to them, check out their content, also follow them on Twitter.
I've probably seen PragerU videos, or at the very least heard of them, and basically...
Oh, I've heard of them. I've covered them many times.
PragerU is an organization, they're a nonprofit that publishes videos that tend toward...
They're a non-profit? They're funded by oil billionaires and fracking companies. Do they really classify themselves as a non-profit? So their website puts them as a non-profit. They're classified as a non-profit. So they really go as a non-profit. It's an American non-profit organization. Okay, I guess they don't make money from their videos. They just make money from their corporate backers and their oil billionaires and the dark money that funds them. Okay, that's great.
Conservative or classical liberal ideas. PragerU's videos cover also...
I hate that term, classical liberal. Dave Rubin refers to himself as a classical liberal despite being far right. Classical liberal is the PC-friendly, the good PR-friendly way of signifying that you are a far-right personality while still being able to maintain a level of plausible deniability about your connections to the far right and be able to get mainstream media coverage and notoriety, because there's the word liberal in it. Sargon did the same kind of thing before he started his own movement called liberalism, I believe it was, before just going full mask off and completely capitulating to the far-right ideologies that he has been peddling for years.
Social and political issues, things like the education system, the economy, healthcare, immigration. And in each PragerU video, there is a different presenter, usually with some sort of following of their own. And not to brag or anything, but I actually have presented my own PragerU video on marriage, by the way, so you should check it out if you haven't seen it yet. So yeah, I mean, I'm clearly a fan of PragerU. I think their videos are very well done, very well produced, and they are very popular. So
weird, a far-right media personality like Lauren Chen, formerly known as Roaming Millennial, is a fan of a far-right media outlet. That's so weird.
Much so, actually, that now we have an entire organization dedicated to combating them from the left. And on that note, actually, let's hear more about what the Gravel Institute has to say about their apparent arch-nemesis, PragerU.
This is H. John Benjamin. I'm here to talk to you about a big problem on the internet. It's called people emailing my wife. No, it's called PragerU. Imagine a huge stream of lies that pours into every computer in America. Imagine it's
This video is fantastic. I love it so much.
disguised to look unbiased and packaged into slick videos. And imagine oil billionaires give them tens of millions each year to indoctrinate your friends, your family. Well, that's PragerU. And the thing is, it works.
First off, as a fan of the show Archer, it makes me very sad to see H. John Benjamin take part in such a terrible smear campaign against PragerU. And
Yeah, I'm sure it does piss you off for him to point out the things that PragerU actually does, because you know it's bad for PR, because you are on PragerU and you are now associated with a far-right media outlet. And also, I used to be a fan of Archer. I think the show's gotten kind of dry and they just kind of need to end it. But I'm a big fan of Bob's Burgers. Why didn't you bring up Bob's Burgers? It's a great show. Come on, Lauren. Bob's Burgers, it's great.
And And I know that since I cover celebrities and politics all the time, I, of all people, should be used to celebrities disappointing me with their opinions, but still, this one hurt. But regarding what the video had to say about PragerU, though, we hear all the time from the left that PragerU lies. They just straight up do not tell the truth.
They don't. I have covered their videos multiple times. They straight up lied in their green energy video. They lied in their police go where the crime is video. And every other single video that I've done of theirs, and I have another one coming up later that I'll be releasing later this week or next week. Every single video of theirs that I've covered has had blatant lies in it. It's not inaccurate to say that they lie, Lauren.
Exactly the same sort of thing that Samantha Bee said about PragerU when her show took a shot at them. And look, I have no problem saying that no, I haven't agreed with every single PragerU video I've ever seen. And if you're someone who is progressive or just generally on the left, I can very easily imagine all of the disagreements you would have with PragerU. But for all of the allegations I've heard of them lying, of PragerU just not telling the truth, I have seen zero evidence to back that up.
Then you haven't watched any videos pertaining to debunking PragerU's claims, because I have provided evidence in my videos, and I have 15 subscribers. Like, I know you're never going to know who I am because I'm infinitely smaller than you, but there are people out there that point out PragerU's lies and back it up with evidence.
Really seen anybody be able to point to a specific video and a specific statement to say, hey, this is not true, this is factually inaccurate, and here's why.
I did it. You haven't seen anybody. I mean, you don't know who I am, but I did it. Hey.
And I love the irony, by the way, of the side with George Soros and all of academia in the palm.
God, these right-wingers are so fucking obsessed with George Soros, and I don't know why. They always say that BLM is funded by George Soros, and Antifa is funded by George Soros, and all of these left-wing movements are funded by George Soros, and I support BLM, and I support Antifa, the political ideology. Where's my George Soros check? These people are so fucking obsessed with him, and it has a lot to do with the JQ, I guarantee you. Are you a JQer? Pretty sure, Lauren, that you're a JQer. Are you?
Of their hands, accusing others of being funded by billionaires to indoctrinate people. And once again, really, it seems like this particular group's only real tangible issue with PragerU is that they are effective in promoting right-wing ideas.
1 out of every 3 Americans online has seen one of their videos, and 70% say that Prager's videos changed their minds. This stuff makes a difference, and every day it is pulling people toward the right.
Pulling people toward the right.
That's exactly what it's doing. This little theatrical show that you're putting on here, oh, pulling people to the... No, it is. And you know it is. You're happy about it. You're just trying to downplay it.
Ooh, how scary. I love the dramatic music behind all of this. You'd think he was discussing the spread of white supremacy or something instead of just...
He is. That is what PragerU is doing. They do it extensively. They don't outright say it. They've got a dog whistle it because it's not very apropos to blatantly support white supremacy, but that's what they're doing. So the fact that you're making this claim is kind of ironic.
Lower taxes, smaller government. This just goes to show how terrified the left is of right-wing ideas, because deep down, I think they know that if the public discourse was actually free and open, right-wing ideas...
Public discourse is free and open. The problem is they're putting their ideas and their opinions on a public platform, which is owned by a corporation, and they have every single right to censor what goes on there because it's their platform. If they don't want Nazis and white supremacists on their platform blatantly spewing their garbage, they don't have to let them. The public discourse is fair and open. You just need to find a platform that'll accept your heinous ideas.
Would be dominating. But the progressives, of course, can't have that, so instead they do things like bully conservatives into silence. They strong-arm their way into
oh no, they disagreed with me and debunked my ideas. They're bullying me.
academia and corporate culture. And now they're trying to fearmonger over harmless videos that have grown an organic audience because people are just interested in what their presenters have to say.
PragerU is not harmless. They are a large portion of the alt-right pipeline. PragerU is by no means harmless. I mean, just the videos that I have covered myself personally have had some horrific ideas in them that people are seeing and having their minds changed about because they do have effective graphics and effective talking points that would change people's minds based on the way that they phrase their ideas. It tricks people into agreeing with white supremacy because they're not outright saying that what they're advocating for is white supremacy. So it's able to influence people's opinions. PragerU is very dangerous.
Quality, easy to understand videos, presenting leftist ideas, and refuting right-wing lies.
One of the biggest issues I have with the Gravel Institute, just right off the bat, is that they're currently painting themselves as simply the left-wing alternative to PragerU. But saying that the Gravel Institute is just PragerU on the left would be like saying that neo-Nazis are just Democrats on the right.
No, because Neo-Nazis want to eliminate certain portions of the population, the Jewish population, the black and brown people, basically minorities that are not white and Christian. That's who they want to do away with. Democrats don't have genocide in their platform, but if you look at PragerU and the Gravel Institute, they're both political media outlets that are just on opposite ends of the political spectrum that are putting out very well-made, I'll admit, PragerU's videos are very well-made content in an effort to change people's minds. They are the same on different ends of the political spectrum. The difference between the two is that PragerU lies blatantly in a shit ton of their videos. The Gravel Institute only recently started, but the videos that I've seen of theirs, they don't contain any outright lies or any lies that I've been able to detect. And they share these ideas in a very palatable way that many people can identify with and could possibly have their minds changed by. This is a false equivalency of the highest order.
In that it's a totally false comparison. PragerU presents mainstream conservative ideas as
No, they don't.
well as just classically liberal centrist ideas. In fact, some of their presenters are actually liberals. In contrast to that, though, from everything I've seen, the people at the Gravel Institute are literal socialists. Don't believe
I mean, yes, they are, but no, the PragerU does not spread liberal ideas or even classically liberal ideas. Their ideas that they spread are very clearly far right.
me? Well, let's check the receipts. Heading over to their profile, we immediately see that about this week's presidential debate, they believe that, quote, Bernie would have won.
Yeah, Bernie would have won. He would have won in 2016, and he definitely would have won in 2020 if he had made it through the primaries this year or 4 years ago. Yeah, Bernie would have won. But the thing is, Bernie Sanders is not a socialist. He's a social democrat. There is a large difference between Bernie Sanders and myself. Bernie Sanders wants more social programs and a bigger social safety net that countries around the world have. I want the means of production to be owned by the worker, by the proletariat, which could ultimately lead to a more libertarian government. If the means of production are owned by the worker rather than large corporations, you would have greater equality, wage inequity would disappear, inequality in the workplace would disappear. You wouldn't need as many regulations because the people that own the business, the workers, would work in their best interests rather than the best interests of their profit margins. That being said, there's a big difference between Bernie Sanders and myself. So what you just showed is not evidence of them being socialist. They are, but that tweet itself is not evidence of that.
In response to an accurate PragerU post stating that Marxism, wherever it's been tried, many people died.
You know, this is where he pushes the myth that socialism or communism have killed, whatever the flavor of the week is, that 100 million people have died under these forms of economic policy, which is not true and has been debunked many times, and capitalism has definitely killed more people in the last decade than communism ever did.
They retweeted a post by one of their presenters, who we'll get to in a second, saying, I have some bad news to break about capitalism.
Absolutely. Like I just said, capitalism, I believe capitalism kills between 7 and 20 million people a year through starvation alone. So if it kills 10 million people a year, a very conservative estimate, if 10 million people starve to death a year under our global capitalist system, in 10 years, we've got the 100 million people in the last century beat.
This group is explicitly anti-capitalism, and I know the Overton window keeps shifting left, but if you ask...
No. The Overton window in America has shifted so far right in the last 4 years. Joe Biden is a milquetoast centrist Democrat. The Democratic Party is essentially centrist at this point. Our Overton window has gone so far to the right. They are not on the left anymore. They are by no means leftists, but Bernie Sanders is pretty decently left, but he's not as far left as it goes. But the Overton window in America has gone so far right, it is insane. White nationalists, white supremacists, and Nazis are freely roaming the streets with the endorsement of law enforcement. That's how far right we've gone in this country.
That is still an extremist and fringe position to have. They've also gone on to say that democracy without socialism is a joke, and the way to get young people to vote isn't doing dances on TikTok. It's free college, Medicare for all, and a Green New Deal. Yeah.
True. That's pretty pog there. I only recently followed their Twitter account, so I hadn't seen those tweets. That's fucking awesome. Hell yeah.
Yes, young people like free crap. This isn't news to anybody. So don't...
It is not free. We understand that it's not free. It is free at point of service, sure, but we all understand that these social programs and these social policies are funded by taxes. We all understand that. We want corporations and billionaires to pay their fair share in taxes, which would fund a majority of this. But even if my personal taxes went up, I would still support these things because I know I would be paying into a system that I would ultimately benefit from. I don't need universal healthcare because I have free healthcare through my employer, yet I still advocate for it. And I still understand that I'm going to be paying for other people's healthcare in a system that I'm not going to directly benefit from, at least not at this point in my life. I still advocate for it, and I still understand that it is not free. I hate this right-wing talking point that conservatives love to throw about, and they seem to have this impression that people on the left, people that advocate for Medicare for all or universal health care and universal secondary education, think that it's just free. And they don't know how we're going to pay for it, and that they just want everything for free. We know how it gets paid for, and we're okay with that.
Don't be fooled by the Gravel Institute trying to paint themselves as the anti-PragerU. They are not just liberals. They are not just Democrats. Heck, they're not even just progressives. They are flat out socialists.
Yeah, which would be the antithesis to PragerU, which is a far-right media outlet. That lines up pretty well.
Let's move on now, though, to the Gravel Institute first PragerU style 5-minute video. The presenter of this video is an activist by the name of Brianna Joy Gray, who is probably best known for being part of Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign this past year and for being, you guessed it, a self-avowed socialist. This past April, after leaving the campaign, she tweeted out, "On the plus side, I can drop the Democratic from my tweets about why socialism is good." Winky smiley face. Obviously, none of these Bernie Sanders people.
I mean, after the recent drama between herself and another one of her fellows and a debate that they had with Noam Chomsky, I don't really like her all that much, but I agree with a lot of her politics, even if I disagree with her way of achieving her goals.
People have anyone fooled with this whole democratic socialism shtick they have going on, but still, it is interesting to see them just fully pull off the mask and admit, yeah, I want to redistribute your crap. And with that
That's not how socialism works. These people simply do not understand or refuse to understand how socialism actually works so that they can hate it. If they prevent themselves from actually learning about it, they don't have to accept the fact that it makes sense and that it would work. They need to maintain their level of ignorance so they can continue hating on something to blindly follow the herd that they are in. If they were to investigate and educate themselves about the things that they claim to hate, they would come to find that there are a lot of misconceptions that they have about that very same concept, but they refuse to do so.
kind of background, it should come as no surprise that the topic Gray chose to do her Gravel Institute video on is why big government is good. Actually, let's watch.
Sure, the US government is big, but not as big as it used to be. As a percentage of the economy, federal spending is smaller now than it was in 1954.
So this video starts off trying to convince you that big government is good, actually, by asserting that government now isn't even all that big to begin with. And even though they're
not in America, no. The government in America is very small, and it's gotten significantly smaller in the last 4 years with Trump doing massive tax breaks and removing all sorts of regulations on manufacturing, fracking, fossil fuel, like a shit ton of different industries. Our government's influence in our daily lives has gotten a lot smaller than it is in other countries across the ocean.
Not technically lying in this segment, it is one of the best examples of misinformation.
How is that misinformation if you just admitted that they're not lying? How is that misinformation? God, these people drive me insane.
Seen. Gray says that the federal government actually isn't as big as it used to be, pointing to a specific figure in 1954. So if the government isn't as big as it used to be, then clearly that must mean that the government is actually getting smaller all the time, not bigger all the time like those lying conservatives like to say, right? Wrong! This is totally wrong, and I'm going to use the same source the Gravel Institute does to prove it. As you can see on this graph found at usgovernmentspending.com, starting in the year 1900, US government spending was very, very low, but then it understandably peaked during World War I. It went back down again, then gradually started rising in the late 1930s, eventually peaking again and dwarfing any previous spending at the height of World War II. After the war was over, spending fell down again, but it had a slight resurgence in the 50s.
Look at that, right there. This is post-war, and it's right there. Now, we've seen right here in 2020 it go up because of COVID. This right here, I'm willing to bet this spike right here is due to COVID.
I.e. the year that the Gravel Institute conveniently chooses.
And you see right here, the Obama administration, where it did not, it's still lower than it was in 1950. And then we have a spike right here during the Trump administration. And I'm willing to bet, again, that this is due to COVID and all of the additional federal funding that's needed to be injected into the economy and the meager amounts of money that has been spent on the actual working Americans in America. We're Americans in America. You know what I mean. Fuck off.
is to compare present-day spending to. So yes, technically it is true that there are points in history in the past where US government spending was more than it is today, but that doesn't change the fact that the overall trend throughout the past century of government spending is that it gradually increases. Just look at
No,
the
it's
graph
not. We just looked at the graph. We just looked at the fucking graph. Oh my god.
Government spending always gets bigger, and it rarely, if ever, gets smaller. And that's the trend with state government, federal government, local government, you name it. And besides, that data
You're blatantly lying.
measures government spending as a percentage of GDP, meaning that if the economy is growing, then government spending can also grow without the government spending figure actually changing, even
Yeah, because inflation exists. We all understand that.
though spending is increasing. I personally think that is a terrible way to
Yeah, I spend more on rent now than I did when I moved out of my parents' house. For a 2-bedroom apartment was like $600 a month. Now that same apartment is $1,500 a month. Yeah, inflation is a thing. You're going to have to spend more money as inflation goes up. But that doesn't change the fact that government spending has not increased at the same rate as inflation, and it has gone down as compared to where it was in the past.
measure or validate the size of government. I mean, just because your economy is bigger, why does that have to mean that your government is spending more? It doesn't. And using this type of measurement hides increases in government spending if they happen to occur at the same time as economic growth.
And the US spends less on government than other countries, like Germany or Finland, that have lower rates of poverty and higher rates of economic.
Very true. The American dream, your ability to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and go from rags to riches is more real in Germany and Finland and the Scandinavian nations and England, all of these other nations, than it is in America. And that's due to their social programs, their social safety net, and the regulations on their economy. This is all incredibly accurate.
Mobility.
I think we're getting to the part that went viral on Twitter. I'm kind of excited to get to it.
The American dream is more alive in these big government countries than in America.
There are a lot of differences between the US, Germany, and Finland. But if you ask a socialist why it is that Germany and Finland perform better than the US in certain
Yeah, this is the clip.
metrics, they'll say it's because the government is bigger and the taxes are higher. That is the answer to
No, if you ask a socialist why these other countries are doing better economically for the average individual, it's because of government regulation on their economy. It has nothing to do with the amount of tax. I guess it has a little bit to do, but it's not because the taxes are higher. It's because of the social programs that those taxes pay for and the regulations that they have on their corporations and on their economy that allows them to have their economic mobility that we don't have here.
prosperity. Is that right though? Are higher taxes
No, what you just said is not right.
and big government really the answer to Germany and Finland's success? It couldn't possibly be because they have overwhelmingly homogenous populations, right?
Overwhelmingly homogenous populations, huh? You're not seriously going full mask off here and saying that these countries are better than us because they're predominantly white, right? That they have a very low minority population as compared to the United States. That's not what you're saying, right? I know you're trying to skirt around the fact that you're a white nationalist, despite the fact that you're not even white passing. I know you're trying to skirt around that, but this little mask off moment that you're having right here with this homogenous society, which we all know is a dog whistle for white nationalism, is kind of ruining that, Lauren. No, it's not because these countries are predominantly white. They have regulations and a social safety net that allows them to have greater economic mobility. I guarantee you, if America was 90% white and had the same regulations and the same social safety net that we have right now, America would be the exact fucking same. It's not because of the color of people's skin or where they were born, because free market capitalism is destroying this country, and the way to make it better is through regulating that free market. The way to ultimately fix the problem is to move away from a capitalist society and move to a socialist economy where the means of production are owned by the proletariat rather than a single individual.
Populations that, by the way, also have a higher average IQ and narrower distribution than the US does.
Higher average IQ and narrower distribution. This is another white supremacist dog whistle here. It's basically speaking to the idea, the bullshit idea, that people of color are just naturally, genetically dumber than white people. That white people are the superior race because our skulls are shaped differently, or we're just genetically predisposed to having higher levels of intellect. And the fact that these countries have higher white populations means that their IQs are higher, and it means that their economy is better because of it. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with the fact that they don't have a history of Jim Crow and redlining and slavery to the extent that America does, that has disenfranchised people of color the way that we do in America. It couldn't have anything to do with the fact that their education systems are much better funded than they are in America, or that their secondary education is either free or incredibly affordable. So more people in those countries are able to further their education, thereby raising their IQ than the average person in America. I'm sure that has nothing to do with it.
If it was true that you could just big government and tax any population into happiness and success, then the story of the Soviet Union would be very different. And before I go any further,
The Soviet Union, first of all, was state capitalism or state socialism, depending on who you ask, though I subscribe to the idea that it was state capitalism because the state owned the means of production, not the proletariat. And the Soviet Union was horrifically mismanaged, and there was a lot of fucked up shit that happened in their government that caused it to have the issues that it did. It had nothing to do with socialism.
talking about left-wing indoctrination, I actually have a way that you can combat this indoctrination, at least as far as your own kids are concerned, and that is our sponsor, Laurel Springs. So up, and that kindergarten.
Two sponsors? Jesus Christ, I'm not shilling for you.
The reason it feels like our politicians don't work for us is because, well, they don't.
True, they work for large corporations and their corporate donors.
Republicans and Democrats alike are working for the people who line their wallets instead. That's not just my politics. That's the academic consensus.
Okay, so I don't actually disagree with what Gray is saying here. I do think that politicians, by and large, are in it for themselves. They're in it to make money, and they're in it to stay in power. And I think that governments the world over cater way too much to special interests. But the thing is, that's just the nature of government, which is why
doesn't have to be under a socialist system where there aren't multi-billionaires that can inject money into our politics to get what they want. Because the wealth is more evenly distributed through these kinds of policies, you wouldn't have this issue. Now, I mean, people point to Soviet Russia and the Communist Chinese Party as ways to debunk this line of thinking, but those are both state capitalism, where the state owns the means of production, and so they reap all of the benefits, all of the profit, and all the surplus value of all of their workers' labor. Under a market socialist system, you wouldn't have that issue.
Conservatives like myself want government to be as small as possible so that people can't take advantage of it. And I've just never understood how people like Gray can acknowledge how corrupt government is, yet at the same time lobby to make it bigger and to give them more power.
See, under socialism, you would be able to reduce the size of the government because you wouldn't need regulations on how much you have to pay your workers, how many hours they can work, regulations on environmental policies, because the workers would act in their best interest and it wouldn't need to be forced upon billionaires that are only in it for profit by a government. Under socialism, you wouldn't need those things, so you could lower the influence of government in society because it wouldn't be as necessary as it is under capitalism.
They're under the naive assumption that government and government workers can just be this benevolent force in it for the good of humanity, but that's not realistic.
Under our current system, that's the best we can hope for.
Seems like no matter how many times the socialists and the communists get it wrong, they always think that no, if they just try again, if they just put different people in power, this time it could be different.
That's because you people always write us off when we say communism or socialism has never been truly tried. That's accurate. Either it's a state capitalist society or socialism is doing very well, like we saw in Bolivia, we saw in Venezuela, and in Cuba, and then United States foreign policy and the World Bank all dip their fingers into it, leading to coups and embargoes and tariffs on their exports to cripple their economy to keep them beholden to capitalism. Because if you step outside of that mold, we will crush you so that people cannot see a successful instance of socialism. That's exactly what we just saw in Bolivia, where there was a coup that took place to supplant the elected leader of the country, who was a socialist that was enacting socialist policies and social safety nets, things like that, and put in place a capitalist white lady in power in Bolivia. And the day that happened, Tesla's stock skyrocketed. Do you know why? Because Tesla buys their lithium or a large portion of it, from Bolivia. American foreign policy cripples any nation that makes an attempt at socialism or communism. Hell, the entire Vietnam fucking war was fought to cripple communism's spread in Vietnam. That was the whole reason we got involved in that war. The Red Scare prompted it, but we fought an entire war that cost thousands of American lives and hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese lives to stop the spread of communism so that capitalism can keep its stranglehold on the world's population.
It's like, guys, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, it's gotta be at least 7 or 8 times now with failed communist regimes, shame on me.
If we left them alone and let them do their thing, I doubt we would have that number of actual socialist or actual communist countries. I mean, if we want to call China a communist country, they're doing very, very well. Again, they're state capitalist, but if we want to call them communist, which a lot of right-wingers do, they're the second largest economy in the world and our main competitor.
1950s, when the economy was growing faster than ever, the richest people in the country paid an income tax of 91%. The corporate income tax.
There was also regulations that made it so that the highest paid employee at a corporation could not make more than 30 times the lowest paid employee at the corporation. And then Reagan destroyed that.
Tax was above 50%. But after decades of tax cuts for the rich, the 400 richest Americans pay a lower tax rate than the bottom 10%.
Now, this part of the video is just blatantly untrue.
No, it's not. You can literally Google it, Lauren. It is verifiably accurate. Why? Oh my God, why do you have to lie so fucking much?
Despite what progressives might keep saying, it's just not the reality that the poor and working class out there are paying more in taxes than the wealthy. And since I'm no tax expert,
especially after Trump's tax cuts, I pay more in taxes than the the 1%ers.
Allow me to share this
or the 0.1%ers.
piece from the Heritage Foundation. It says that, quote,
the Heritage Foundation. Yeah, strongly biased towards... Yeah, so of course they're going to say this shit. They're a right-wing media outlet.
Using data from a new book by Berkeley economists Emmanuel Zayes and Gabriel Zucman, i.e. the people the Gravel Institute cite, the Times claims that the tax rate on the highest income Americans was 23% in 2018, falling below the tax rates of all other income groups. To get
Yeah, that's after Trump's tax cuts on the super wealthy.
this result, they had to cook the books, systematically inflating the income of the richest Americans without also increasing taxes and leaving out important transfer programs for poor Americans, such as the Earned Income Tax Credit, which can more than offset the cost of the payroll tax for some with low incomes. The most recent IRS data from 2016 shows that the top 10% of income earners pay almost 70% of federal income tax.
That's just factually inaccurate. I'm sorry. They pay 33% in taxes.
Additionally, looking at all federal
Not
taxes,
70.
the Congressional Budget Office shows that the top 1% pay an average federal tax rate of 33.3%.
That's the top 1%, not the top 0.1%.
The data also
or the top 400 people, which are the obscenely mega wealthy. They're way more wealthier than 1%ers. 1%ers are like millionaires and single-digit billionaires. Like Jeff Bezos, the Walton family, the Rothschild, those are the ultra mega wealthy that the Gravel Institute was talking about.
Shows tax rates decline with income, and the poorest 20% of the population pays an average tax rate of just 1.7%. If you think taxes on the working class are just too dang high, then I'm right there with you, because I think taxes on everything and everyone are too dang high. But don't start pushing this.
Without taxes, how would we, the old pay for roads, fire department, blah, blah, blah. Without taxes, you wouldn't have a police. These right-wing talking points are getting so fucking old at this point. You don't want to pay anything in taxes, yet you want to enjoy the fruits of what your taxes pay for.
BS narrative about how poor people pay more in taxes than the rich do, because that is just not true.
Well, I mean, it was just released that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes in 2016 and nothing in taxes for a decade before that. And I've definitely paid more than $750 in taxes this year alone, so...
While American workers have become dramatically more productive, their wages have stagnated or fallen. The average hourly wage was higher in 1974 than it was in 2018. This has led to a stark gap in qualities of life.
True.
I always find it funny when socialists try to blame stagnant wages on capitalism, because it really does just go to show how little they know about economics.
That is a direct result of capitalism, because corporations work in their best interest. A corporation or a corporate owner is not going to make a decision that will negatively impact their bottom line without being forced to do so. Which is why in 2009, minimum wage was $7.26, I believe it is. And in 2020, it's the exact fucking same. wages have not increased. And the average wage of workers in the United States has stayed the same despite inflation going up. That's a direct result of capitalism.
Which, I mean, we already could have guessed based on them being socialists. Like any other commodity, labor, especially low-skilled and hourly labor, is subject to the law of supply and demand. And although socialists might not like to hear it, capitalism isn't to blame for stagnant wages. It's immigration. For example, if I...
No, even the most right-wing economists agree that immigrants, including illegal immigrants, have a net positive impact on the economy. What you're saying here is just fucking false. I believe Vosh touches on it in the Ultimate Research document, which I'll link in the description.
I'm a makeup artist, and I'm the only makeup artist in town. I can pretty much charge whatever I want to do other people's makeup because they don't have any alternatives to go to. But then, say over the next couple of years, scores and scores of other makeup artists start moving into town and taking on jobs. Now, all of a sudden, the amount that I'm able to charge people to do their makeup drops dramatically because the supply of makeup artists has increased. This is exactly what mass migration, specifically mass low-skilled migration, is doing to low-skilled laborers.
This is more mask off white nationalist talking points that she's talking about. The brown people are coming in and stealing our jobs and making the economy worse. This is very mask off right now. But let's finish the video.
In America and so many other Western countries. And if we want this to stop, the answer isn't to dismantle capitalism, it's to have some freaking border controls, some immigration restrictions.
We have some of the strictest immigration laws in the world. The wait list to immigrate here from Mexico legally is over 20 years. Yeah, it takes multiple decades to legally immigrate to this country. We have some of the strictest immigration laws in the world. Making them stricter is not going to fix anything. It's actually going to harm our economy.
Pretty much all I have to say for now, though, and as always, I would love to know what you all think. Do you think the Gravel Institute will be successful in combating PragerU?
Yes.
And why do you think they are so scared of short conservative videos?
They aren't scared of them. They're just taking a direct opposition to them. And I'm very happy that there's a well-funded group of individuals out there that are creating content that's directly opposed to PragerU. But yeah, Lauren, you kind of went really mask off at several different points in this video. I am completely comfortable at this point calling you a white nationalist, which is kind of sad considering the fact that if they get their way and they institute their white ethno-state, you're not gonna be allowed in it, honey. Just a fact. You ain't white. You may be Christian, but you're not white. I'm sorry. I don't know why you are grifting and shilling for these people. Actually, I don't think it's a grift at this point. I think she genuinely believes the things, these repugnant ideas that she's spewing constantly on the internet. I don't know why she does, because she's got to know deep down that if the white nationalists get their way, she's not going to be allowed to stay. She'll either be kicked out or killed. But anyway, that's all I have to say about this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to hit the subscribe button down below. My socials are right here. You can follow me on Twitter. You can join the Discord and join the conversation. Come hang out with me. You can follow me on Twitch, where I play video games, and you guys can come and hang out. We can chat there. Feel free to drop a like on this video, and until the next one,